The number one key to personal branding is to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. And that is not a Brand Builders quote. It's not a Rory or AJ Vaden quote. That is from a guy named Larry Winget, who is just basically somebody that we have studied and we have known about for years, and went through one of his trainings. And that is something that he said that really helped us on our journey. And you'll hear more about our journey over the coming months and so forth. But that is what we're here to do, is to help you find your uniqueness and then help you figure out a way to turn that into a rock solid reputation, and then how to monetize that reputation, basically in the service of others. And so today we're diving right into the heart of the matter of getting clear on your personal brand. What we're going to do is we're going to take you through a couple different exercises and some overviews, or it's more like we're going to really present some frameworks to you. We're going to talk you through something called Sheehan's Wall. And we're going to go in detail about that. You may have heard about that before in a light way, but we're going to go through that in depth. And then we're also going to walk you through the brand helix, which is a core part of the genesis of where personal branding starts. And then we're going to zoom out at the end of this and give you a higher level picture of the Brand Builders Group process, so that you can see where we're going to take you over the next 12, 24, 36, 48 months. Some of you we may be working with for even longer than that, and we hope we get a chance to do that. So we're super excited about that. I just wanted to say a special welcome to those of you that are here. If you can, just mention in the chat window where you're from. Yeah, say good morning. I see Mariah is here. Leave a comment and just let us know, where are you chiming in from. This is an earlier one of our earlier trainings, and our team is actually in training right now. So we are just small but mighty, perhaps. But I also wanted to introduce myself. I am Rory Vaden. If you don't know me, I am one of the co-founders of Brand Builders Group, a New York Times bestselling author, and the husband to the amazing and one and only my wife and business partner. So, babe, why don't you introduce yourself for a second?
Hey, I'm AJ Vaden. I am the other half of the co-founders of Brand Builders Group, and I'm really excited to have you guys all here today. And our goal is to fit as much as we can into this next hour without overwhelming you. So that's why we want you to be using the chat. If you want to ask a question, if you need us to slow down, if you want us to go back over something, please, please, please use the chat so we can keep this at a pace that works for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And as AJ mentioned, the chat is really important, because this is a chance for you to share, your experiences, to also to ask questions in the chat if you have them. Or one of the things that's really helpful is if you can capture the highlights. We take screenshots of these chats and we'll post them in the Facebook group afterwards, so that the people who aren't here live can get a chance to see the comments and questions, and they can chime in. And then if you ever happen to miss one of the live ones, we always post the recordings with the chats and screenshots from the training. And then, of course, you get the full recording, so you can go and watch it at any time. I do want to start on that note with Charlotte is saying, are we going to have a recording of this one? Absolutely. We record all of them for sure. And Charlotte is in LA. That's awesome. We got folks from Wyoming, Sacramento. So exciting that you guys are here. We're excited. We believe this is going to change your life and change the entire future trajectory of your path. And more importantly, of the lives that the people that you're going to impact, and that this is going to help you better change their lives. So we do have a poll question. The poll question here is, how clear are you on precisely what your personal brand is all about? Because that's what we're talking about. That's sort of the theme here for the next few months. And I'm going to let AJ kind of just walk you through what these sort of 5 options are, just to kind of give you an idea of what each one is all about, and how to sort of score yourself accordingly. So AJ, do you want to kind of walk through what the options are there?
as far as the poll. So think about this. If you're a 5, it's like you know exactly what your brand is. You already have your message tailored to your brand. It is a 100 of a 100 as far as clarity, messaging. It's out in the public. It's working for you, and you're monetizing it because it works so well. Now, a 4 would be, okay, I think I know what it is, to the point where I've already started working on stuff, but now that I'm getting things going, I'm second guessing myself. So it's like, I know this matches up with my passion, but there's something that seems to be that I'm missing when it comes to what problem do I solve, or how am I going to turn this into income or revenue? But I think I know what it is. Now, a 3 would be, I haven't started anything and I've got some ideas, but there is no clear message. There is no clear title. You haven't thought about anything like that other than, all right, I've been noodling and brainstorming, and I think I'm in this direction. Now, if you're a 2, that would be, I've got tons of ideas and I love all of them, or I don't love any of them. But you've got lots of ideas and you've at least started the thinking process, but that's it. And then a 1 would be, I know I want one, but I don't even know what I'm good at. I don't even know what I want to talk about. I just know that I've got a message in me. I know that I've got a calling somewhere to speak, to write, to blog, to podcast. I want to make money. I want to turn this into a business, but I have nothing else. I don't even know what direction to start in. So that would be kind of how you would be ranking yourself.
Yeah. And I'm as I expected, it looks like most of you are feeling pretty clear. So we'll see how that shakes out as we kind of continue on. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. I mentioned this in the chat below also, but if your browser, if you have any tech issues, usually if you just refresh the page, you'll be good. If for some reason the internet goes down on our end, we will have, we'll spend a few minutes trying to get it. And if for some reason we can't recover it within like 10 minutes, we'll post a note in the Facebook group, let you know it's gone down. And then in that case, we'll just record the training and then we'll get it out to you within 24 hours. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But it does occasionally on a random occasion. So I want to dive in immediately to something that we call Sheehan's Wall. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for you on this and talk about clarity. So this is a picture of Peter Sheehan, and basically he presented this concept that AJ's telling me my audio is having problems here. So let me know if we're having too many crazy problems for some reason. But we have he presented it basically as there is this challenge when it comes to personal branding, or really the way he presented it is just to sort of market awareness in general. In that basically you've got two parts of the world. You got people who are known, and then you have people who are unknown. And on one side of this, you've got, this is where we all sort of live. And what happens is we all come at branding or launching our own businesses, and it doesn't matter if you're a chef or you're an artist or you want to be a speaker or an author or you have a product that you sell online. The common things that happen is we're trying to break through this wall, right? We're trying to become known. We're trying to become a recognizable face, a recognizable brand, a recognizable, even, you might use the word celebrity in your space, which is a part of, what we kind of hope to create. And so what happens is, because we're trying to do that, we're trying to do all these different things. And a lot of times the big mistake that we have is we might have multiple different messages, and so we don't have sort of a clear message. Sometimes we're going after many different audiences. And so we haven't taken the time, we're not super clear on our audience. And so we're going after, we got a bunch of sort of random audiences. Sometimes we have a bunch of different revenue streams. And so we'll be working with people, or we'll find people in the implementation groups, or people who will come to Nashville for the strategy days. And it's like they've got 14 different revenue streams going, because they heard that having multiple streams of income is a good thing, which, that's kind of a different conversation. But in their business, they've got all these different revenue streams. And then we got people who post in all different, they're in a bunch of different mediums, which is generally a good thing, but they don't have a unifying strategy of where they're sharing of how they're sharing their content in all these different places. So it's like, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Pinterest, but they don't look the same. They all feel different. So you've got sort of a dilution. So what's happening here is you've got dilution on this side. Dilution of message, dilution of audience, dilution of revenue streams. And then also they're inconsistent with their frequency. So they might have a blog or they might have a podcast, and it was like they did it for a while and they were on track, and then they sort of fell off the boat. And then they got back on and they got excited, and then there was like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to do a YouTube show now instead. And so then we did that for a while, and it's like, I don't seem to get any traction. And so what happens is, as this is the way of the world, and we're trying all these different things. And the other thing that is really common here, right, is you have a lot of different people telling you, oh, you need to be doing Facebook ads, and you need to be launching a podcast. And oh my gosh, if you're not on YouTube, you're crazy. And oh my gosh, Instagram is the thing that's blowing up. Like that is the future. But Snapchat is where you have to have a presence if you're going to reach the next generation. And, we hear all these different messages. And so we try all of these different things, and we start bouncing off the wall is effectively what happens. And the people who break through, what you see very consistently is they focus everything in one direction. And so on this side, the way to break through is to become known for one thing. You're relentless and consistent and disciplined and vigorous about putting out into the world sort of one consistent message where you're known for, one thing. And it's not that it only has to be one thing. Next month when we get into talking about core target audience, you'll see us cover more about that. The theme of this month is you're discovering your brand DNA. But you might be clear with your message, but you're not clear on your audience, and you're not clear on your revenue stream. Or you might be clear on those, but then you're not clear on where you should be, or you're just inconsistent with the frequency. But when you have clarity about all of these things, and then you're focused, then what happens is you're going to break through the wall here. And then this is what it looks like is once you're on the other side of the wall and you become known for one thing, then you can expand into other things. And so who are examples of this? So there's several, but a couple of the ones that are, really fresh in the world today, these are huge, huge personal brands. So probably one of the biggest personal brands that I think of, right, is Oprah, right? Oprah is now doing all sorts of stuff, right? She's doing movies. She has a magazine. I always get excited when she makes the cover of her own magazine. I'm like, oh my gosh, Oprah made the cover of O Magazine this month again. That's so exciting. But where did she become known? She became known for one thing. She was the talk show host, right? And then she became known for that, and it exploded everything else out. I know many of you, at least that are with us right now, are very familiar with Lewis Howes. Lewis had all these different things kind of going on, and he was, lifestyle entrepreneur. He was doing pro sports. He was teaching LinkedIn messaging, but it was the podcast is where he really started to break through. And so now he's a speaker and he's an author and he does all these different things and he's working on all sorts of crazy stuff. But, and he just released a Facebook TV show, but, it was the podcast was where he really broke through. He became known for that one thing, the School of Greatness. And so what we want to help you do is get very, very clear on what that is for you. And you'll know when you get there, because basically you'll know when you're on this side, because this is all push. This is all incredible energy. It's heavy lifting. It's time. This is what you're going to be doing, by the way, in your implementation group. So those of you that are in the implementation groups, every month you're going to be in a 90-minute meeting where you're actually doing the work. Okay. So just for the purpose of this being the first call here is on these trainings, we're going to give you the knowledge. Everyone's going to get the knowledge in the education here. This is the classroom instruction. But then in your implementation groups, that is where you're going to actually do the work. You're going to go through the exercises that we give you. Of course, you could, try to do some of that on your own. But the power of the group is you're going to not only have the time block to do it and the support and the encouragement, you're also going to have like a live feedback and focus group of people who you can bounce ideas off of, and also other people who are getting the same education that you are and kind of going through this and bringing their own experiences. Plus, you'll have one of our people there with you. So that is kind of how that works. But AJ is going to walk us through here in just a minute what we call...
Before we actually move on, I think one of the things that's really important for anyone who thinks that their brand is missing some consistency or the message isn't really clear, here's one of the things that I would challenge you. And actually, if you could go back to that slide, Rory, with Sheehan's Wall. One of the things that I would challenge you to do that's a great homework assignment for yourself is actually go through your blog, if you have one, and see what are all of the things that you've written about in the last year. And is there any consistency there, or is there no consistency? And I think that doing a little bit of homework of yourself, because you may be sitting here today going, okay, well, I'm doing a couple of these different things and I have this passion and this passion, don't know how to connect them. And a lot of times what we think we're passionate about or what we want to be doesn't actually end up being what we spend time on, or vice versa. And it's like all these other things are trendy and we get caught doing that versus focusing on our passion and our problem, which is really where your message is. So do your own homework assignment. What do you post on social media? If you have a podcast, what have you been doing your podcast on? What kind of interviews have you been doing? Because here's the challenge, because one of the brands that we've been working with, I was doing some online stalking yesterday, and the topic that this one individual covers is social injustice. And the whole thing, his whole message is about social injustice. But online, there were two things that I found that were really concerning, and this is why it's good to do your own homework on yourself online. The first thing is there was no consistency across mediums. All right, one podcast was launched in July. One was 3 weeks before in June. The next one wasn't until March. And then there was two posted on the same day in February. And then you start looking at the content, and the entire topic of the podcast and the blog is social injustice. And then the last podcast that was posted was 4 foods that you can eat to be healthier. And so you've got to figure out, like, what's the continuity? Where's the consistency? And it's not that you have to talk about the exact same thing every single time, but you got to find a way to take all of the things that are happening. It's health, wellness, nutrition, politics, sports, whatever. But how does it apply to your unique message? And that's where you and you alone are going to have to figure out, how do you make all of those connections once you have a really core message? Otherwise, you're never going to break through this wall. And this seems like a relatively quick exercise that we're going through, but this is really important. And so doing some homework on yourself of going back through your revenue streams, back through the audiences that you've spoken to, that you have online, wherever they come from. Maybe you're a contributing writer for somewhere. Maybe you're a school teacher. It doesn't matter. What are the mediums that you've been trying to get your message out in? And then the inconsistency or consistency and the frequency. And then actually look at all of your posts, look at your interviews, look at your articles, and do homework on yourself to give yourself a grade, right? Like after you take that poll and you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually go back and then re-rank yourself based on the things that you've actually been doing over the last 6 to 12 months. That will help you create some focus if there isn't any, but it will also help you just figure out, what have I spent most of my time thinking about, writing about, talking about, and that will help you define a laser clear message.
I like it. And that's a real life example. AJ and I we were just literally just talking about that last night. And I think that's good. And so, just to summarize this little part before AJ starts teaching the brand Helix. And I do see we have a couple questions coming in. By the way, here's what we do with questions. We will usually either save them to the end, or what will happen is if we run out of time, our second training every month. We usually do hot seats and then Q&As there. And we also take the questions and we'll answer them in the Facebook group so that everyone kind of gets the benefit of them. So, if we kind of get through everything, we'll cover it here. Otherwise, we'll make sure, like I see Mariah's got a great question that's super relevant. We will get it answered in a way that everyone can see it. So just to wrap up this last little part, how do you break through, right? So just going, okay, what does it take to break through that wall? A couple things. Number one, uniqueness. It takes uniqueness. It's the rarity of you is what we want to celebrate. So even if you have a fitness gym, there's a million people that have fitness programs, fitness gyms. Yes, but we want to find what makes yours unique, which will be directly connected to you. Just like if you're an author or a speaker, which is really, the world we came from was coaching, consulting, speaking, writing books. The second thing is alignment. Alignment. Everything that we're doing with you over the next 12, 24, 36 months is about helping you create alignment in your messaging, your clarity for your business strategy, your marketing, your messaging, your productization to the products that you offer and to the systems you build in the business to support that. Number three is awareness. We have something called the reputation formula. And the reputation formula is huge, but we say that reputation or reach, results times reach equals your reputation. Results times reach equals your reputation. So that reach part is a huge part and it's very controllable. So obviously awareness, and that's we're going to talk a lot about that, right? Once we get aligned and we kind of get the foundation set, and then we're going to build this giant, brand. Obviously, traffic and stuff all becomes a big part of that. The next thing is a need. You fill a big need in the world. So one of the ways you break through the wall is when you pinpoint something that is a true need, a true problem that people have. And then the next one is consistency. There's one more. So consistency. You see, I should have counted these up beforehand. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Being consistent, which we talked about. And then the last one is being freaking amazing. So once you have, there's like a discipline and a structure and a science piece here, and then there is a part that becomes art. It is the ability to move people emotionally. It is doing something fresh and original and sort of bringing the artistic element into whatever it is that you do. And it's, if you're selling a product, it's having an amazing product. If you're a speaker, it's having great content. If you're an author, it's telling amazing stories. So whatever it is, if you're a chef, it's being really, really, really good at your trait. And some of that is not necessarily inside the conversation of personal branding. Some of that is what you have to do, right? And you have to be the master of your trait, but it's really relevant here. So that's what we're trying to get to. And that's where we're going. And our primary tool for doing that, which is sort of the theme of the month, is the brand Helix. And so AJ's going to go ahead and walk us through that, and I'll chime in here and there. So take it away, babe.
Yeah. So here's what I would do is I'm actually going to have a little PowerPoint pulled up, and I want to walk you guys through this. But what I also want you to do is I want you to be taking some mad notes. Okay. That's really important during this entire conversation. So there's a couple of things that I kind of want you to think about when you think about this Helix. Now, there was a really specific reason that we wanted to use the analogy of a DNA helix. One is because no brand should be the same as somebody else's. So here's what I don't encourage you to do is go see what's popular right now. That is not what a personal brand is about. It is about utter uniqueness, and it's utter uniqueness to you. It's celebrating your individuality and owning it, and then turning it into something that is incredibly, one, fulfilling, but two, it makes you a lot of money, and that's okay. Like, it's okay for your brand to make you a lot of money. That's a good thing. And you can do that by being incredibly unique in this space. So what this is, it is a three-part internal process and a three-part external process. And so we're going to walk you through in-depth today as much as we can. And whatever we don't get to, we're going to pick up on our call next month, because our very next call this month is going to be a hot seat. But we're going to continue this conversation around this brand helix, because in the center of this, this right here, what we're going to pick up on as the calls go ahead is, how does your message tie to your core target audience? And that's really important, because every message has an audience. But first, in order to find your audience, you've got to find your message. So I'm going to give you some questions, and then I'm going to give you some context around these questions. And this is what we want you to start spending some time on right now on this call, thinking about, noting, writing it down, but then also giving yourself some exercises to do once this call is over. So here we go. All right. Very first question. What problem do you solve? What problem do you solve? Now, here's what I want you to think about when it comes to problems. Here is one of the biggest challenges that we see in the marketplace. People spend all of their time talking about the solution without ever helping people realize, what problem do they solve? You need to be talking about the problem that you solve as much as how you solve the problem. People need to know that they have an issue before they understand how you can solve it. So when you think about what problem do you solve, here are some of the things that we see when we're working with brands. One, they think they solve lots of problems. And you probably do. You probably could. But this is about a personal brand. And so you need to focus it on a core problem, not 3 or 4. It is great to have a few to brainstorm, but somewhere at the core of this, there has to be one big problem that your message solves. Now, the other thing that we see is that people have a paragraph description of the problem that they solve.
Amen.
But we want to see it in 1 to 3 words. Simplify it to the simplest level. I always remind myself, it's like, I need to explain something so that a first grader can understand it. It does not need to be complex. It does not need to be lengthy. It just needs to be simple, straightforward, but it also needs to have some impact to it. So when you think about these problems, you also want to be thinking about in the context of, not only is this a problem that I saw, but this is a problem that other people have, right? If you have it, other people have it too. But it may not be a problem that you have, but it may be a problem that you're just really good at helping people with. So when you think about what problem do you solve, we want you to start with this. Make a list of every problem that you think you solve.
Or that you could solve. Yeah.
But here's how I think about it. Like when I was working on my personal brand, I made a list of probably 15 things that I believe that I do, can, and could solve depending on the situation that I was in. I am naturally super organized, and I'm like, okay, well, organization at work specifically is something that I do really, really good at. I'm really good at finding what's not working, right? So I'm really good at looking around and figuring out what's missing. I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. And I had this really big, long list of problems that I do solve and that I could solve. But through that process, what I started to realize is that most of them circulated around one big category. And because I was focusing on everything so very individually, I was missing the bigger picture of the big problem that I solve. So part of listing all of these out isn't to just start crossing them off a list, it's to also see how are they connected. Because you may start with, oh, okay, my real problem is I solve negativity. But then you may say, well, no, it's actually a bigger problem than that, or it's even a more narrow problem than that. But by making that entire list, it isn't just a brain dump. It's to look at how are they connected and how are some of them disconnected. And that'll help give you some focus into the messaging. So I'm going to give you just like, before we start talking, I'm literally just want to give you like 5 seconds of silence just to let that sink in. Okay, Rory, what were you going to say?
Yeah. So the 1 to 3 words thing, I think is so important. And the people that are the masters at this are infomercials. And how does every infomercial start? It starts with a grayed out screen of like some, ridiculously over exaggerated situation where it's like, oh my gosh, all my fruits and vegetables got spoiled. I've lost hundreds of dollars this month with bad vegetables. But introducing, but that is because it works. And so one of the reasons I think you want to be clear on the problem, like AJ is saying, is because of you need to be able to communicate that quickly externally. People need to understand that. But I think what's even more powerful is that you have to be clear on the problem, because it helps you be focused. It helps you focus your entire business around something. And so being able to say, this is the need that this is the question to which I am the answer. This is the problem to which I am the solution. This is the need that I service and solve in the world, creates so much strategic alignment and direction for you. So I just wanted to have you kind of think about that infomercial thing, because you have to promote the problem as much as you promote the solution. And if you don't know what the problem is, you're going to have a hard time promoting it and being super on fire and clear about it. But the word I also think of too is almost like an ambassador. So you're like an ambassador of the problem. And so when you're in the media, when you write, when you speak, when you talk, you're not even just telling people what you do. It's like you're talking about whatever the problem is. And so often we want to go straight to the solution. We want to go straight to the answer. We want to go straight to our service. And it's like, it's a major error in judgment. It's a costly mistake. And so you have to have this clarity. So, is there anything else on the problem, AJ, that you were wanting to talk through, or you wanting to move on to passion?
It's not so much that there's anything else specific to the problem, but I think that Barbara actually raised a really great question. It's like, if you're in a position, and if everyone's looking in the chat, you can see Barbara's question. So some of you are in the position that you're maybe taking other people's stuff and distributing it. And one of the people on our own team that's actually one of our personal brand strategists now was priorly in a position where they actually trained other people's content. So they were a trainer, and they would get certified in other people's content, and then they would actually go out and repurpose that content. And so she herself said, okay, well, if I'm repurposing all of this other content, then I don't really have a personal brand. And when talking with her, we said, no, actually, you do have a personal brand, but within other people's content or other people's products or services that you're maybe reselling or redistributing, or you're just getting certified and reteaching, there are still problems that you solve for the marketplace that are individually yours. And so that could be tied into what you're doing, or it could be completely separate. But in her cases, one of the things that we really found that she solved is for where she was redistributing content, is that one of the real issues that she solved was time, was duplication, right? There was a real issue in time. So I don't want to get too in depth in that on one individual. But what I do know is that there is a problem that you solve that is individually yours, regardless of what you're selling, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, it's somebody else's. There is something that you uniquely solve. And that may take a little bit more brainstorming. It may take some group brainstorming, but it's there.
Yeah. And the other thing that I thought of, AJ, is so in addition to sort of having your own sort of specialty and focus within that. So it's like, somebody might be a certified trainer, like in this example of somebody else's stuff. You still are going to bring your uniqueness to the conversation. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I thought about is, and this will apply when we get to core target audience, is that the part of the problem that you're solving is not for the end user. Like in your case, Barbara, if you're reselling other people's stuff, if you're a distributor of other people's stuff, one of the problems that you're solving is distribution for the distributor. Right. Like, or for the, call it the manufacturer, I guess, if you'd be the distributor. I know that's, just because I know your business, it's not really a product like a physical good. But when you get clear and you go, gosh, the part of the problem that I solve is I help people make their tool, their knowledge, their asset available to more people. And even though you're not the creator of the content or the creator of the thing, whatever the widget is or the IP is, you're still solving the problem of distribution. Well, when you answer this question, it completely reshapes the way that you look at your marketing. Because if that's the case, then your target market is not necessarily, it may not be, again, this will require discussion and conversation, but it may not be that your real customer or your primary customer is not the end user themselves. Your primary customer is actually the manufacturer, the creator. And those are the people that are your real customers. And when you're clear on that, you go, gosh, my marketing needs to be more tailored towards manufacturers or towards creators, because that's the real problem I solve, is that I help them get their stuff out to more people. And so you got to get into the specifics here, but the only point I wanted to make is that when you get clear on the problem, it very much informs your audience, and it can help you. It might even cause you to sort of reshape your business strategy a little bit too. So just wanted to make that point. And then if for further clarification, keep asking questions or put it in the Facebook room. We'll get to it. So AJ, what's after problem?
Yeah, well, I would say this is kind of where the uniqueness of you starts to roll into this, and there is a problem. And I think that it's a really good point. It's like, once you've identified what your problem is, it doesn't just shape your message and your personal brand. It shapes your marketing. It shapes your target market. It shapes how you sell, how you talk to people, what you post about. And I think those things are really, really important. And even with Mariah's question that we got earlier, you got to just be crystal clear for your audience. It's what problem do you solve, but what problem are you solving for them? And that is how it's connected to the next thing that we want to talk about, because there are probably some problems that you solve that you're not all that passionate about. And so the next thing that we want to talk about is, what are you passionate about? Now, this is where some people just go a little crazy. And yes, I know that many of the people that we work with have lots and lots and lots of passions, but we're going to ask you to hone it in, and we need you to help singularize what is your number one core passion. And here's what I like about passion, because I am not personally a very touchy-feely, emotional kind of person. And so a lot of times when I hear, what are you passionate about? I kind of just go, there's nothing that I get that uber excited about other than my 16-month-old child. There's something about the word passion that somehow has always been just a little bit of a disconnect for me personally, because I see it as what gets you excited and what gets you going. But here's another way to look at passion. What pisses you off? What irritates you? What are you just that has to be fixed? There is something that's got to make that better, easier, faster, smarter. And that is what gets me going. So the passion component of this was really a really big disconnect for me. But when I think about it in terms of what just really needs to be fixed? What pisses me off? What's missing? What irritates me? What problem is just oh my gosh, I can't believe no one's talking about this. That gets me going. So it could be both, right? So the P there could be pissed off or passionate, depends on your personality and how you go there. But I would encourage, just like with a problem, you've got to try to narrow it down. And if you've got 10 huge passions, focus on what are the core 1 or 2. And maybe there's some way to combine that with a problem. But when you look at your passion and what problem do you think they solve, they probably need to be connected. And that's why making a list of every problem that you solve or could solve, and every passion that you have or something that pisses you off, again, it's your own kind of checks and balances around what are all the things that I could be talking about this for 10 years. So when we think about what is something that really you're passionate about, positively or negatively, Like, this isn't something that's like, yeah, for the next 6 months, I could really give this my all. Now we're talking about like for the next 10 years, like I could dedicate my cause to this. Like, this is something that I would not get tired talking about or writing about. This is something I could write 5 books about because there's so many different assets. That is what we mean when we say passion.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I think the reason we start with problem, and I think AJ said this perfectly earlier, where she said, what are all the problems you solve or that your brand solves? And what are all the problems you could solve? Because you could solve 100 problems. You probably know information about more than just one thing, right? You do. And so the genesis of brand strategy, not the genesis of a personal brand. We'll talk about that next on the next training call. But the genesis of your brand strategy starts with what problem do you solve? So you make a list of all of these things and you go, okay, these are all the things. And then of that list, the passion question is helping you narrow it down. So it's sort of like a second step in the funnel, because if you were to start with what are all the things I'm passionate about, we typically find one of two things. One is somebody's like, well, I'm passionate about 1,000 things. So where do I even start? Or like AJ said, I'm not really passionate about all that much except for, my dog and my kid and my family or a sports team or, something. And you're like, that's not really what I'm going to spend my life doing in terms of a business. And so you start with the problem. That's where it all starts, and everything is going to be aligned to that point. And then the passion question helps you narrow it down. Because here's the thing, that we have seen, and we have seen this. Again, we don't want to spend too much time right now talking about our personal background and brands and stuff. But AJ and I came from a business. We exited a business that we helped grow to 10, over 8 figures. And what we saw is we worked with a lot of corporate people, and we saw entrepreneurs and things. And we've always sort of been in the world of speakers and authors. And there's a lot of people that make a lot of money and they hate their life. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money and they feel completely empty. And you don't want to go down the road of all the work it takes to build all of this and make it where it's successful in terms of its scaling. You've got, audience, you have reach, you got monetization, you got, those kinds of things. And then find out, oh crap, I don't really love this, or it doesn't fire me up. And so that's what we're trying to sort of peg right here, I think, with the passion question.
I would also just encourage that, the problem and the passion and where they connect. Another litmus test that you can just run yourself through is, what do you already spend time doing, reading about, listening to, learning about? Like, what are the books that you go across in the Airput bookstore or even at Amazon? It's like, where do you find yourself constantly drawn to when it comes to I just want to spend time on this. I want to spend time learning about it. This is just very fascinating for me. I love talking about it. And maybe it's not even something that you're really spending a lot of time on right now, but there is a core passion that's like, I just love blank. That could fit in there too. And so again, to our point, this isn't something that it's like, yeah, I could really get going about this for the next little while. This is something that you could be stretched out over the long haul, but your passion has also got to be connected to a problem that you solve, because that is at the core of what people are actually going to spend money on, is how are you going to solve a problem that I have? But for you to have internal fulfillment on this, you also have to have the passion component.
Yeah. And we're obviously going to be getting to that, the business part here in a moment, start touching on those things. But, on our next call, part of what we're going to want to do with the hot seat in the Q&A is we're going to want to have, when you come back, we're going to want you to share and type, okay, these are the problems that I think I solve. And we're going to ask some of you just to share a list. This is the problems. These are the ones I think I'm passionate about. And when we do hot seat, we'll kind of take one or two or three or five of you and sort of walk you through it. Now, if you're in a branded implementation group, that's what happens. That's happening every month on a regular basis, and you're applying it. But sort of our second call every month, we're going to want to hear from you. So when AJ says take the time to actually do this, that's where it's going to come up, and then we do kind of like live application. So take us through the next questions in the brand helix.
Yeah, and I'm not going to spend as much time on every single one of these, so don't worry if you're looking at the clock. We're not going to keep you over. We promise. We will keep this on time. But the next question that you want to ask yourself is, when you think about this, it's like, what have you really researched, or what are you the expert on, right? So when you think about what problem do I solve, what passion do I have, what do you actually have valid expertise on? Right? There's lots of things that I love, but I have got no expertise in. So when you think about what are you the expert on, like that is really simple. When you think about research, is what do you have a degree in? What are you reading? What have you spent time shadowing or being mentored on? What do you study? What do you spend time doing? What are all the things in formal education, even if it's not a degree, that you have actually dedicated time, money, resources to? Where have you spent a lot of time actually going through the process of saying, no, I have an expertise on this. I know this, and I know it extraordinarily well. And that is making a list of basically your own credentials. What have you read? What have you researched? What have you written on? What have you earned the right to talk about, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But where are all of the things that you would say you researched in order to become an expert?
And I think this is an important one, that this is like the knowledge piece. Like AJ is saying, it's almost like there's two types of people in the world with personal brands. There are the people who have done all this research and studying, and they have like knowledge. Maybe, you might think of like a professor, but they don't have any real world experience. Or you have the opposite, which is like, I'm like a gunslinging entrepreneur, and I've got real world experience, but they've never taken the time to actually get sort of formal education or research on their topic. And part of breaking through is doing both. And so you want to spend time like doing all these things, formal education and mentoring and studying. And do you know the science behind your topic? Do you conduct polls and surveys? We'll talk about that later. And then when we get to one of the exercises we're going to take you through is what we call your expert bio and your future bio. And so we take all of the assets you have now of all the stuff that you've done, and we package it in a way so that it puts this expertise part forward. And then also we think through, who do you want to be 5 years from now? What is your bio going to say? So we'll sort of take you through that on the research piece. So those, again, we're covering these quickly now, but we're going to tie deeper into these later.
Yeah. Now, just like the problem and the passion are connected, when you think about what have I researched, what have I actually spent time doing, i.e. your expertise, we equally want to look at what do you actually have that real life experience in. So what have you earned the right to talk about? So the expertise, the research component it is that formal education, whether that's through reading, writing, not arithmetic, but it's like what are the educational components? But then what have you earned the right to talk about? Those are real life results. So what results do you have that meet the problem and the passion? So this would be that real life experience of, hey, I went through this. I succeeded in this. I made it through this. But that's real life experience. This would also include things that you've been awarded, things that you've won, things that you've achieved. But these would be real life results in terms of performance, survival. But this whatever has happened in real life that you can say, no one else can just say, I read about this. No, I went through it and I succeeded. I made it through, came out on the other side, but I have real world experience in this, not just stuff that I read in a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of a guy named Dave Averin, who was like a mentor and a coach to us. And he said, figure out what you do better than anyone else in the world. Talk about what you have earned the right to talk about. And that's part of that's your personal story, right? Like I know we've got people on here that sell products, physical products, and some of that is just telling your own story and sort of incorporating it in. But it's when you look at breaking through Sheehan's wall, right? And you look at what it takes to be this person. Part of it is that alignment and that authenticity that you're practicing what you preach. You're providing a solution where you know something about the problem. And there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, posers out there. There's a lot of people looking to make a quick buck. They're just, doing kind of gimmicky things to make money. And you want to build a substantive brand, for the long haul. So that's what, the results is all about, is being able to sort of back it up.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, the next one, just to make sure we're on time and you can see it here, it's like, what would people be willing to buy from me? And we actually have a really quick acronym. One thing that you're going to learn throughout this entire process is that Rory Vaden loves acronyms a lot.
Love it.
There's an acronym for everything that we're going to talk about. But when you think about this, here's what we want to do. Make a list, like with everything else, of what are all the things that people would buy from me. What are all the things that people would buy from me? And then you want to kind of run it through this checklist. So Rory, I'll let you do this. Okay,
yeah. So there's basically 5 monetization types of a personal brand. And this isn't necessarily 100% perfect, but this is pretty all encompassing. You could also think of this as 5 business models of how do you monetize a personal brand? And so the acronym is PAYE. This is how it's like, okay, how am I going to make money from doing this? And we're going to walk you through all of these, right, over time, and the various strategies for making money. But number 1 is you sell a product. So your personal brand is somehow tied directly to a product. So that could be a physical product. I know we've got people in implementation groups who sell like fitness clothes and is a very like tangible product. Then we've got people that might sell some type of like a any widget, right? So it's that simple. Then the A is ads, and we put affiliates under this too. So this is if you build an audience, right? All of these, basically, you monetize from building an audience on some specific space, which is why we're talking about what we're talking about, because the more specific your problem is, the easier it is going to be to monetize. But you can basically make money by just paying, offering advertisers and affiliates the chance to access your audience. So you don't actually sell or do anything. Your job is to just build the audience. The third one is you. So this is you as a service. We're going to talk a lot about that one. I'll skip over it for just a second. Then the next one is education. So these are people, you're selling video courses, you're selling membership sites, you're selling coaching programs, you're doing consulting. Consulting probably fits more up here. But books and video courses, and membership sites classically fall in here. And then the last one is you sell entertainment, right? This is what Netflix is. It's just people are paying for access to entertain, to be entertained. They want to see videos of you entertaining people, or they're paying for additional access to an entertainer, somebody who is sort of a celebrity. Now, depending on, everyone on here is different, but this is the one that almost all of us could do immediately because it doesn't require much tech, is you can offer yourself as a service. So that is where you talk about, speaking, coaching. This fits under 2 categories. We said there is teaching. So you can teach people, and then there is doing. Right? So if you're teaching people, you're probably doing like speaking, coaching, consulting on whatever your topic is. But then if you're doing the thing, like if you're a chef, this would be actually making private dinners. If your personal brand was building a cleaning business, it would be offering high-end cleaning services to a company. So this is often the fastest, highest dollar way to monetize what you do is yourself as a service. And you can do all of these, but again, it's sort of choosing focus. And when Frank Kern talks about what's the fastest path to cash, and if you think about, some of you here are going to invest tens of thousands of dollars with us over the next couple of years. A lot of times we're going, okay, how can you drive up your speaking fees, drive up your consulting fees, drive up your service offerings, because it doesn't take but a few of those to pay it off. But anyways, these are the 5 sort of business models that you could be in, or that we see people doing, as it relates to what would people buy from me. You could create your list for all of these. And then the next question, AJ, why don't you walk us through? Just go ahead and start talking about the next one here.
What business do you want to be in? The next question is, what business do you want to be in? Because you could do all of these. You could have a product, you could build some ads, have some affiliates, you could offer some services, you could educate some people in a different variety of ways, you could provide entertainment. But what do you want to be in? So again, it's a full listing, and then it's a narrowing down. It's what do you want to be doing? Now, I'm going to kind of pause right there, and I'm going to circle back just really quickly, because I think something really important came up in the chat. And this is something that we see a lot when we work with personal brands, is that people start listing out things that are connected to the problem, but it's not a problem. And I'll give you an example. There was someone on our own team, just so that we're not talking about anyone in the chat, but there was someone on our own team that they were like, the problem that we solve is motivation, right? Motivation is not a problem. Lack of motivation is a problem, right? So we solve the problem of being healthy. Being healthy is not a problem. Being unhealthy is a problem. Being unfit is a problem. Those are problems. But when you think about what problem do you solve, don't think about what do you do or what do you enjoy or like what is the result. Think about the actual problem. So if you've written down, hey, I solve the problem of peace. Like I want people to be peaceful or joyful. It's like write the antithesis, all right? So go through and look up the antonyms to joy and peace or health or fit or whatever. But really focus on the problem, because we see a lot of people when they think about what problems do they solve, they think, well, I solve the problem of motivation. I help motivate people. It's not a problem. Being unmotivated is a problem. So when you look at that, and that's why this looks really simple, but it's not. And that is a really important part of getting the message clear. It's also why the entire next call is dedicated to the hot seat. Because a lot of times the problem that you think you have isn't actually a problem at all. And until you have that clear, these other components don't really put themselves together in alignment for you to actually get to what would people buy from me? And what business do I want to be in? Because it all starts with the problem.
Yeah. And some of you, like I know some of you are early in your brand, or, you're at that point where you're not yet making money from it. And that's part of the question, right? Is like, oh my gosh, like I wouldn't know I want to do this. I know I was designed to do this. And just to kind of like round out the thing, these 3 questions, as AJ alluded to earlier, these are all about who the world needs you to be. And these are about who the world, or who you were designed to be. And the intersection of this is where your uniqueness lives. It's also where you start to access your core target audience. And when you figure out what business do I really want to be in. But I know that if you're in that mode, and we have been there, and by the way, in transparency, Brand Builders is our new venture. So AJ and I and our team, and we're on this journey with you. We are rebuilding. We're rebuilding both a personal brand and a business brand. So we've been on this journey, but we're starting over right now. So we have a lot of the empathy for the, when you're just trying to kind of get it going, and hopefully you'll see, you'll watch us and how quickly we rebuild. We're rebuilding a new brand, but we're not rebuilding our reputation. And that's why we're talking a lot about reputation as well. But if you're in that moment of I'm struggling for money, you offering yourself as a service is one of the fastest ways to monetize quickly, right? So if you want to sell fitness products and that's your ultimate goal, let's design a plan to get there and start working towards that. But if you're an expert in fitness, the fastest way to generate a lot of money is going to either be teaching it, right? So you're going to be teaching other fitness people, like you're going to be teaching people about fitness, or you're going to be doing it. You're going to actually go out and do the personal training, right? So that is part of your assignment here as you think about, okay, how do I start making money quickly? Is if you're in that place where you're struggling for money, is go, okay, how could I take my expertise and offer it, as a service or as a service, either teaching people what I know or doing for people what I know. And that may not be your long-term strategy. It's a short-term way to fund the growth of your business. It's like you sometimes have to make those sacrifices in the short term, but that's where you can generate the money to get the education, to invest in your website, and to build the funnels and the landing pages, and to do all the tactical stuff that we're going to get to. And so we just want to sort of encourage you to think about that. So, all right, we're about out of time, or we are out of time, and so this is why we do 2 calls a month. But just to those of you that are still with us, I want you to be thinking ahead for a couple things. So we'll cover the Brand Builders Group overall process. We didn't get to that today, but there's basically a 5-phase process at a high level, and this is phase 1, which is called brand identification. It's kind of like, brand DNA, finding your uniqueness. That's what we're going to be walking through here over the first few months. Because if you get this wrong, nothing else matters, right? Until you get this locked and solid, everything else is just going to be a distraction, a mess. It's going to go in 1,000 directions. So you've got to do the work, the hard work of getting this set right. So we'll cover that. Your assignment is to actually start going through the things that we've talked about here. List out all the problems you feel like you could solve. Circle one that you're most passionate about. Those of you that are in brand implementation groups, we're going to be getting those scheduled ASAP. By the way, just to let you know, those of you that are in brand implementation groups, I'm going to be helping our strategists lead those early on here for the first few months as we're sort of ramping things up. We have a platinum level of this that AJ and I lead every month, but just as we're getting started, anybody who's in an implementation group, AJ and I, and me specifically, I'm going to be there helping you get those groups kind of going and off the ground. So you're going to be doing this work in those implementation groups and getting feedback. Make sure you're connected to the Facebook page. Post your questions there. We have some questions here that have been asked. We're going to address some of these again. It'd be just so that we give them proper time. So make sure you're checking that. That's also where we'll post the schedule of upcoming things, and we're going to be in a good rhythm for that. If you ever want to be in the hot seat, make sure you let us know. You can do that either basically with the Facebook page is the place to say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or, I think I have it, but I'm not totally sure. Can I volunteer for a hot seat, which will be the next one? And by the way, we will teach on the next call as well, but the live application is really going to make this stuff come alive for you. And even though you may not be the person in the hot seat, I think you're going to see it's incredibly powerful to watch that application happen. So volunteer for that.
Help you get clarity. That's the big thing, just clarity.
Absolutely. And so the last thing we'll just leave you with is a quote from one of our very good friends. Her name is Sally Hogshead. Some of you probably know her. And she says that different is better than better. And that is what we're helping you figure out, is how to be different. We're also going to hopefully encourage you and help you be better as well. But if we can really peg your uniqueness and get this clear, and you're going to set the foundation for a rock solid reputation and a great brand that will help you certainly become rich, famous, and influential and make a big impact in the world, which is what I know you want. And it's definitely what we want for you. So thank you for the gift of your attention and your time. We take that seriously. We love you. We look forward to going on this journey with you, and we'll catch you next time on Brand Builders Group. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.